over the weekend. On Saturday, Dr. Mark de Souza wrote, Medicare's not free. Ontario wants to cut healthcare funding by vilifying doctors. Debate we need to have is about much bigger issues. And Dr. de Souza is here this morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Jerry.
All right. I think one of the problems is people don't know exactly what you do earn, because you can read, well, a doctor billed $300,000, but what doesn't get included in that is what expenses the doctor might have that the ordinary employee, so to speak, doesn't have.
I mean, this is a debate we constantly have with the media, with the public, is that it's extremely difficult to discern actually how much we take home.
Yeah.
And the government refuses to be fair on this, and they fail to provide context every single time.
All right. What percentage of, if we see a doctor got $300,000 on a ballpark, how much of that would have been paying for a facility or overhead or that kind of thing?
Well, Jerry, it varies drastically from specialty to specialty.
Okay.
So, for example, if you're running your own practice, depending on the size of that practice, the overhead is higher, compared to whether you are working in a hospital where the overhead is lower, if not zero.
Okay.
So it's very hard to discern that. But I mean, that's not really what the issue is about, because what the doctors' billings are really a distraction tactic. You know, it is only so much of the healthcare budget. What about the rest of it?
Do you think that there may be a lot of people listening to us right now who are sort of, playing the world's tiniest violin for you, because in the end, even if there's overhead, doctors do pretty well financially?
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
World's tiniest violin. There's a lot of people. It's very, very hard to find sympathy for us. But that's not what it's about, and that's that whole distraction. I mean, it's about patient care at the end of the day for all of us.
Okay. Then what is it that you want?
Well, we want patient needs to be funded appropriately, which is not happening today.
So you're not talking about how much the doctor makes?
That's not the issue at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you feel then that the government is not spending enough money on healthcare?
Well, there's, like I say in my article, it's a bit of a bigger issue than that. But, at the surface, let's start there. Let's say, yes, the government is absolutely not. There was a financial report last week that was released showing that the government is only funding 1/3 of the increase needed to maintain what we have, just to maintain. So where does the rest of funding come from? Hospitals are scurrying around, clinics are scurrying around, trying to make ends meet and trying to service the patient needs with less.
Why are there increased costs?
It's been a trend. It's been a trend for decades, really. As I say in my article, we are a victim of our own success.
Yeah.
We have done fantastic. People are living longer. There used to be 20 years ago, 30 years ago, there didn't used to be as many chronically, older people that are living with chronic diseases. But now, the hospitals, come see what I do at my work. The hospitals are rife with people. I see 90-year-olds all the time, 80-year-olds all the time. Mm-hmm. And my heart goes out to them, because I look at their long faces and they are waiting and waiting and waiting and sick.
Okay, and we didn't used to have to deal with an awful lot of sick 90-year-olds because they didn't get that far.
Exactly. So we deserve a collective pat on our backs for having this success, but now it presents its own problems.
Okay. Well, plus the population is increasing.
Well, that too.
Yeah. What's the solution to this? Is it just merely to spend more money?
That's a very superficial way of looking at it, but essentially the pie needs to be bigger. The solution is a very complex problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
where does that money come from? Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, where does that money come from?
I mean, I've thought about this. There are three different ways we can look at this. One of it is simply the current money in the pie for healthcare. How is that distributed? For example, there's a massive amount of waste in the bureaucracy. Do the people playing the tiny violins know that Canada has the highest number of bureaucrats per capita in healthcare in the world? I mean, it's not an efficient use of time. Or resources.
Yeah. People who are not, in fact, at the front end of dealing with patients. I
mean, the Auditor General of Canada slammed the Liberal government in the last year about the LHINs, the Local Health Integrated Networks.
Yeah.
And now Eric Hoskins wants to quadruple that. That's his solution to healthcare, quadruple the amount of bureaucracy. Fantastic, right?
How does the LHIN work, or how's it supposed to work?
It's a bit of a mystery to me. I'm not entirely sure what they do.
So they're no help to you?
Exactly. I'm on the front line. I don't know what they're doing.
Okay. So it's a bunch of bureaucrats in an office somewhere, and you as a doctor serving patients can't tell what they're doing to help.
Exactly, Jerry. It feels like we're trying harder and having worse patient outcomes. It's very frustrating.
Okay. Do you think that the whole idea of doctors do well enough is a smokescreen?
Absolutely. Just like free dental care for low-income families.
Uh-huh.
They're all trying to say, look at this issue, look at this issue. Don't look at the real issue, because we don't want to tell you what the real issue is.
More with the doctor in just a moment on the issues we have in our healthcare system. And a little later, after the 10:30 news, we'll take your calls and your reaction to what we're talking about. His assertion here that the government has screwed up healthcare in the province of Ontario and now wants to lay it on the backs of the doctors. I'm talking to Dr. Mark de Souza. He wrote a commentary for the Toronto Sun over the weekend called Medicare's Not Free. Ontario wants to cut healthcare funding by vilifying doctors. Debate we need to have is about bigger issues. Dr. de Souza is an emergency room doctor at Humber River Hospital and a palliative care physician. You talked about, Doctor, the waste that you say is in the system, way too many bureaucrats versus people actually giving healthcare. I want to reemphasize, you said Canada has more bureaucrats per patient than any other country?
Per capita, that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bureaucrats, people that don't provide actual health care.
Exactly.
Okay. So if the other countries don't need them, why do we have them? It's a reasonable thing to bring up. On 3 points that you want to talk about for improving health care, do you think that we need to actually spend more money, or can we get rid of those bureaucrats and come out even?
Like I said, Jerry, it's a complex problem, and I think that would be step one, but I don't think that will be the end of the story.
But you do think we need to spend more money?
I do think more money needs to be spent, absolutely.
Okay, because you do mention in the column, and we all pretty much do this, is the billions of dollars here and there that the Liberal government has wasted. However, if you put that back into the system, that would only be a stopgap kind of thing. We need an ongoing solution here.
I mean, they're Band-Aid solutions, right? If it looks like the Liberals can change it to look like a Ferrari on the outside, it's still going to be a lemon.
Okay.
The base system needs to change.
All right. So we've got waste within the system, more funding. Here's the word that a lot of Canadians hate to apply to healthcare: private healthcare. Does that scare you?
Yeah, a little bit. It stings to hear that, because I'm Canadian. It is in my blood to have everything publicly funded and everything universally covered and accessible.
Yeah, but I think that the panic about the idea of privatizing in any way is unreasonable. I've brought this up before, but I recall a conversation when John Tory was a host here. He was talking to some individuals who wanted to set up some private clinics that would look after smaller things. Like, I cut myself and maybe I need a couple stitches in my finger. It's not life-threatening. I just need a little bit of work done. And it's cheaper at, say, this private clinic, even though OHIP would pay for it, but it would be cheaper because hospitals are phenomenally expensive places to get things done. So their idea was, let's save a little money here. It's still you can still use your OHIP card. And people freaked out because these guys who are setting up the clinic might make a profit. People need to wrap their head around the fact that everybody needs to make a profit, or they're not going to provide a service, whether it's you through the hospital or a private clinic. And it prevented a good idea. I think people need to rethink how we do healthcare in this country.
Jared, that's exactly why I did write the article, because this idea that it is a taboo topic, it needs to go away, and we need to be able to, I want to introduce this idea to the public forum. The public needs to be engaged, and here's the idea.
In context of what we're talking about, how does what you think is going on right now limit what you can do for your patients?
In every single way, Jerry. So, I go into work and I see very long waiting rooms, very large waiting rooms packed with people. I have to see patients in the corridors because there's no room for them, and there's no room for them because there's no room upstairs in the admitted wards, and there's no room for them in the admitted wards because there's no room in the respite care, long-term care facilities, nursing homes. Mm-hmm. It's the signs of a system in chaos.
Do we need more facilities or a better way to deal with the people so they can come in and out of the system?
Both.
Yeah.
Why not both?
Well, because it all comes down to dollars, doesn't it?
It does, right?
It's not cheap to build a hospital and fill it up with people.
Absolutely not.
Okay. So, is that what you're saying we need? Why do we have these long lineups? Are people, because we have free, in quotation marks, we have free health care, are some of them coming to the hospital when they actually don't need to?
I do see people in the waiting room laughing and joking with their Tim Hortons. Yeah. But, that's part of it. Sure. Fair enough. But okay. I think even if you remove that from the equation, that we'd still have the wait lines would be very, very long still because of the number of really old, really sick people that we have to and want to care for.
Sure, but other countries that don't have the same wait lines that we have also have old people who are sick. It's not unique to Canada that we have people in their 90s who are ill. That's a Western world phenomenon.
I mean, Jerry, I'm talking specifically from the emergency room perspective. Let's look at the bigger picture. Say you need a hip replacement.
Yeah.
The wait list is 1 year, 2 years to get there. Say you need, God forbid, like stem cell transplant.
Yeah.
You know, what are your choices today? That's been covered.
Well, do you have to also get in line for something like that?
So, I mean, this has received a lot of press attention recently because, you know, this is a topic that's actually very near and dear to my heart. I'll illustrate this with a personal example. You know, my father, who's actually an avid fan of your show, he's been listening for years.
Oh, well, thanks. Hi, Dad.
Hi, Dad.
Yeah.
He received a bone marrow transplant in the year 2000, so 16 years ago from Princess Margaret Hospital, you know, and we'll always be grateful for that. If he were to be diagnosed with that same condition today, he would have two choices. One is die, or maybe he gets to go to the U.S. But, yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah. We have, and since 2008, doctors from Princess Margaret Hospital have been warning the government, you are not funding us appropriately, you're not funding us appropriately, and as of March of this year, they cannot take more patients because they are at their stretch to their limits.
Now, if your dad was in that situation and he didn't like option one, which was to die, and he went to the U.S., would OHIP pay for that?
So I'm not sure how exactly that works right now. So I think since they made some patient made a noise in January, OHIP is saying supposedly they're funding people to go to the States. I don't know how many people have received that care. The other problem with that, there's two problems with that as well. If you do get funding for that, you are it actually costs the government more money to send you to the U.S. than to have kept you here.
Yeah.
Because we haven't funded the system appropriately. And the second issue with that is the government does not fund for your family member to go there and help out with your care.
Which is going to be an obvious expense you'd have that you as a family member wouldn't have. You live here already. If he's being cared for in a hospital locally, you can just visit him and there's no expense involved in that.
So is that
other than parking maybe or something?
Is that universal access?
No.
You tell me.
No.
Yeah.
No, I mean the Supreme Court has said access to a waiting list is not access to health care.
So we're failing at our Canada Health Act. This is what the system is right now. I mean, collectively look ourselves in the mirror and say, do we like what we see?
You're going to be at the legislature today.
I will be.
What are you hoping will happen there?
Well, it is question period, so I'm hoping that both the opposition party and the NDP do question the reigning government as to healthcare issues.
And how they're going to fix it.
Exactly. What is their plan? Because every time I look at question period on healthcare issues, I see the liberal replies being somewhat very airy-fairy. Nothing is actually direct. They don't actually answer the question.
There are many people who feel that Canada has the best healthcare system in the world.
Yeah, I did too. I was like that too. I was exactly in those shoes up until I started working in the system.
Well, then maybe you're like the great line that I've quoted before from Christy Blatchford, which is Canadians think that Canada has the best healthcare system in the world until they actually have to use it.
Oh, that's perfect. Yeah, exactly. I would be very scared to be a sick person right now in Ontario. Very.
Dr. Mark de Souza, thanks so much.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.